Today's episode looks at real stories of individuals who believed the system had failed and decided to deliver justice themselves. Some became heroes to many. Others became villains. All of them changed history. Let's begin. The making of John Brown. The year is 1812. A 12-year-old boy named John Brown has just finished driving a herd of cattle more than 100 miles. Exhausted but proud, he delivers them to a U.S. Marshal, who is so impressed that he invites the boy to stay for a few days before heading home. Inside the Marshal's house, John meets a boy his own age. The child is poorly dressed, quiet at first, but kind and intelligent. The two quickly become friends, laughing and playing together. That evening, guests arrive for dinner. John is praised at the table, while his new friend quietly serves everyone. But after the guests leave, everything changes. The Marshal's warm smile disappears. He begins shouting at the boy for small mistakes. Then, without warning, he grabs a fireplace tool and brutally beats him. John watches in horror as his friend is struck again and again. That night, something inside him hardens. Raised in a religious household that condemned slavery, John had heard that it was evil, but now he had seen cruelty with his own eyes. From that moment on, he believed slavery must be destroyed, no matter the cost. From believer to fighter. As he grew older, Brown struggled in business and moved frequently. He raised a large family and quietly helped enslaved people escape through the Underground Railroad. But the country was becoming more divided. New laws forced citizens to return escaped slaves. Violence spread across territories, deciding whether to allow slavery. Brown began to question whether peaceful protest would ever be enough. In Kansas, pro-slavery forces attacked anti-slavery settlers, including his own sons. In 1856, after a series of violent events, Brown decided to strike back. One night, he and a small group targeted pro-slavery settlers and killed several men. The incident shocked the nation and ignited a period known as Bleeding Kansas. To supporters, Brown was a defender of justice. To his enemies, he was a dangerous extremist. The raid that shook America. By 1859, Brown had a far bigger plan. He believed that if enslaved people were armed, they would rise up against their oppressors. His target, the Federal Armory at Harpers Ferry, Virginia. Even abolitionist leader Frederick Douglass warned him the plan was suicidal. Brown went ahead anyway. On October 16th, he and a small group seized the armory and cut communication lines, but the uprising he expected never came. Instead, local militias surrounded the town. The following day, U.S. Marines led by Colonel Robert E. Lee stormed the building. Brown was captured. Several of his men, including his sons, were killed. He was tried for treason and sentenced to death. Before his execution, Brown declared that if his death helped end injustice, he accepted his fate. He was hanged on December 2, 1859. Within 2 years, the American Civil War began. To some, John Brown was a terrorist. To others, he was a martyr. A father's revenge. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 1984. Gary Plauché trusted his son's karate instructor. The man was welcomed into the family's home and treated like a friend. Then, one day, the instructor took the boy on a trip and never returned. Weeks later, police found the child in California. He was alive, but investigators soon uncovered a devastating truth. The instructor had been abusing him for over a year. When Gary learned what had happened, he was overwhelmed with guilt and rage. The suspect was later flown back to Louisiana under police escort. Gary waited at the airport. As cameras rolled and officers walked the suspect through the terminal, Gary stepped forward, pulled a gun, and fired a single shot at close range. The killing was captured on live television. Many across the country were shocked, but many others understood exactly why he did it. Gary later received probation and community service and never served prison time. When asked why he pulled the trigger, his answer was simple: if it was your child, you'd understand. When cities took control. San Francisco, 1851. The gold rush had turned a quiet town into a chaotic boom city. Crime exploded, fires, robberies, and murders became common, and corruption made arrests almost meaningless. Frustrated citizens decided to act. Local business leaders formed a secret organization called the Committee of Vigilance. They arrested suspected criminals, held their own trials, and carried out punishments, including executions and forced deportations. Within months, crime dropped dramatically. The group disbanded, but when corruption returned years later, the committee reformed, larger and more powerful. At its peak, thousands of armed citizens effectively took control of the city's government. After removing corrupt officials and restoring order, they dissolved once again. For better or worse, they had proven something dangerous. When people lose faith in the system, they may create their own. Final thoughts. These stories raise a difficult question. What happens when justice feels out of reach? Some of these individuals are remembered as heroes, others as criminals, but all of them crossed a line, believing the cause was worth the consequences. Because when justice fails, someone, somewhere, may decide to deliver it themselves.